So why is it that these people have got all this power and all this money? Why? Because they fucking took it. They took it. They had guns and knives, and whatever, and they took it from people and have been lording it over us ever since, and paying people to protect them from us. And I've had enough of it. I've had enough of the sycophanty suck-upness of all the people in the elite, and that's again another thing that you never see famous people say. You'll never see famous people that are always pro-Israel, always pro-royal, always pro-American. Won't get them to say bad things about any of those things, and if ever they do, they're off the TV screens very, very quickly. Like I say, just make me question whether anybody in the public eye in this country puts a question mark above their heads, every single one of them, because I can't see how they let people on the screens if they don't have the goods on them. What would explain the way the UK has been just going along with a genocide with Israel, no matter what? Although 80% of the country's against it, what would explain the media running cover for it non-stop if they've got the goods on the royal family, right? Because those tapes are out there. Epstein and Maxwell taped everything. The FBI had over 2,000 videos of CDs of videos just from one of his properties. He had 5, and that's not including his island. I think that was the one in Texas. That's just one. Over 2,000 videos. And they haven't prosecuted, they haven't even looked at a single one, I bet you. Why is that? Well, if you jump to the conclusion, Israel's got the goods on us and he's blackmailing us, it all makes sense.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make war history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. Hey, Gordon.
Hello, you beautiful man.
Every time. It's Friday the 21st of February, 8 p.m. UK time. Where do you want to start?
Well, the world's gone to the dogs, and it's all Trump's fault. It's all his fault. There was nobody before him that did anything. It's all his fault. Everything was fine up until January the 20th, and apparently, it's all his fault. And the world's falling apart.
That's right. Zelensky's a goodie. Everybody's a goodie except for Trump. Trump.
Zelensky's definitely not a dictator. Definitely not, even though, there is martial law in Ukraine and he has banned political parties and he has banned the Christian church. And
that's right. Arrested them, and he's arrested opposition leaders, and he's banned opposition media, and he's banned the Russian language, and he's cancelled the elections. And before he did that, he signed a decree saying it's illegal to negotiate with Russia as long as Putin is in power. Definitely not a dictator. Sounds like a great humanitarian, egalitarian, even though he's running out of people to throw in front of the front lines.
Well, he needs an army now. He needs a really strong European army, and we need money. Lots of money to buy the rockets and beat the Russians.
We need more of your money and more of your young men. We need more young men to throw, more of other people's children to slaughter.
It's quite remarkable the way the media is still hanging on to this and spinning it. Now the cat's out the bag. It's quite remarkable that they are still hanging on to this. It was a war of aggression from Russia without any historical context whatsoever. It's quite remarkable how they're still going along with it.
Yeah, well, they omit the references to the Minsk agreements, undertakings by the US to not expand NATO when the Soviet Union collapsed, to not give Ukraine nuclear arms. Well, they took the nuclear arms away, to not allow Ukraine to join NATO. Just omit any mention of those.
I mean, when they're defending their allegation that this was an act of Russian aggression, this war, without any historical context, they always bring up, well, there was martial law in the UK in the 40s during World War II. Churchill, he postponed the elections as well. So just because he's done that, not as a dictator. Yeah, but Churchill didn't ban other opposition political parties. He didn't ban the Orthodox Christian Church. He didn't ban free speech. He didn't, ban basically any adversarial media in his country. 90% of the media in Ukraine, did you know this? 90% of the media in Ukraine up until 2 weeks ago was funded by USAID.
I didn't know 90.
90%. I've been saying for 2 years how Victoria Nuland was bragging about the billions that they put into Ukraine during 2006 to 2003. This is pre-Maidan coup. I've been talking about how she was bragging about the billions and millions of pounds that they flooded into the airwaves. Now it's 90%
Yes.
US. Just the US propaganda, pro-Western, anti-Putin propaganda machine. 90% of it. That's stuff that the BBC could only dream of. That is.
They'd love to have that, especially with people cancelling their TV license. But the other thing is that it's the US funding that's been paying for the salaries of the Ukrainian civil servants and Ukrainian social security benefits. So all that's going to go.
Yeah.
And that's
politicians who have been living it up in the south of France. These and their kids have been on TikTok with their in Miami, that sort of thing. The gravity trains are going to be over for them, and that's why they're running around in circles right now.
Yeah, but it's okay because European Union and Britain are going to come to the rescue with a $700 billion package.
Yeah, but I mean, by Zelensky's own mission, $700 billion of that, $500 billion will go missing. He says he's only had $70 billion out of the $300 billion. Where's the other $230 billion gone?
Yeah, some of it's gone up his nose. So 700 billion euros, right? But here's this, Gordon. Here's what I've been thinking. They can't do it. 700 billion euros to rearm Europe. Now, there's problems with that. Where are they going to get the energy from? Certainly in Britain. Where are we going to get windmills, solar farms, right? That's where we're getting the energy from to power these factories that we don't have. So first we have to build the factories, but we need energy to build the factories. And then once we build the factories, we're going to need tungsten and nickel and titanium and silver and iron. Where are we going to get that from? I know.
Russia.
We'll buy it from Russia. It's absurd.
It's funny because it's true.
It's absurd.
Australia do it with China. They spend all this money in the Pacific to protect their shipping lanes from the threat of China when they get 80% of their stuff in that zone from China. It's pathetic. It really is. But
and they're not at war with China, Australia, and China, right? But it's just this big bogeyman to justify all the expenditure. So Starmer's going to go to the US next week. I tell you, Trump is so good at trolling. He's so good at trolling. He says, "Why is Starmer coming?" I don't know. He asked me. He asked me to have this meeting. That is what he said. Let's see what he has to say. So Starmer's going to go, and one of the things he's going to say is he's going to ask the US for security guarantees. So the UK and France will send their troops in. If we get attacked, will you back us up? What do you think Trump's going to say?
Well, imagine you go out on the night, your night out with your mates, right? And your mates get you into a big scrap, right? And you end up in this big scrap, and you get to the point where you can walk away, right? You can finally walk away. It's like you get bruises all over. It's like, oh, I can walk away. So you start walking away, and then all your mates who got you into that and buggered off, who haven't had a scratch on them so far, drag you back in and say, "Come on, if we're going to fight, you're going to back us up." Of course not. Of course you're not going to do that. He wants to get out of it. He's been saying it's not his war. It was a Biden thing.
Yep.
And he's not going to back them up. And if that happens, then you've got to question NATO. And no doubt NATO are going to start questioning themselves because, this is a paper tiger, obviously, if that's the case. And, America are very unhappy that the expenditure of the NATO countries. It's not unsurprising that they're unhappy that nobody's spending 5% of their GDP on defence because all of that money would go to America because that's where they'd get all the weapons from.
Yeah, but they won't now if they raise it. Thing is, Europe can't afford it. The UK can't afford it. I don't know if I've mentioned about the UK is underwater because of money it's borrowed to pay for the Ukrainian war. We owe bondholders billions and billions and billions and trillions, right? Just completely hot to the bondholders. And as you know, bondholders, they got to get paid. And then the European Union has got no bloody money with it. They got no bloody energy. They got no bloody commodities. Where they're not going to get the money. They're going to come up with Euro bonds, war bonds. But then who's going to buy them? Who's going to buy them? You think you'll ever get your money back on those bonds? From what?
And also, you want to throw like €750 billion at this. What does victory look like? Does that get victory, does it?
Well,
No.
Victory
No.
looks like
It prolongs the war for another year, 2 years, another 500,000 dead, this time Europeans instead of just Ukrainians. No, this is over. I read earlier in the Telegraph, I think it is, they're expecting Russia to have declared victory on Monday.
Wow.
3 days from now. We're recording this on Friday, so this weekend it could be all over.
Wow. Well, if they do they surround all the troops in Kursk, then that's pretty much it. I think I've not been following the battlefield, but I know in May, the victory in Europe, celebrations in Moscow, Putin and Trump and Xi are likely to meet. That'll be quite something.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that will be good. It'll piss
See
off.
the liberals' heads explode in this country.
Do you know, occasionally I pop into Blue Sky.
Right?
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
God. Oh my God.
Just a liberal echo chamber of.
Well, there's very little analysis. It's just name calling. It's just name calling. It's like, well, okay, well, how about some debate here, some arguments about why the Minsk agreements weren't valid or something, or how come the CIA didn't get rid of Lukashenko in 2014, right? So, some argument. No, it's just name calling. That's all it is. Trump's a dictator, Orange Hitler, Putin's puppet. Okay, this is debate. This is why you left X, because to just listen to other people call out, just name call and insult. That's it.
Yeah, the quality of discourse I find during, especially it's been increasing over the last few months as it's become more and more obvious that we were right all along and this was a proxy war, and it goes back to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Really, if you want to start, 1990, maybe even before that, if you want to actually really start analysing the story, there's more to it than just Russia invaded Ukraine. That's it. It's bad, but it works. It works on people. People are barely paying attention, and it's very easy to fool them into believing or into supporting a course that had they known the full information, they wouldn't have taken that course of action at all. And people are coming round, but it's really slow. People get entrenched in their positions, don't they? It's easier to inform a misinformed. It's easier to talk to an uninformed person than it is to a misinformed person and change their opinion.
Yeah.
And that's the difficulty we're having at the moment. But it'll happen. And those people will say that they were always against the Ukraine war, of course. And they love Putin, and Zelensky was obviously a criminal all along.
Yeah, obviously. And they never had any boosters. or had that Ukraine flag on their bio or anything, right? But it's what Goebbels said, isn't it? You repeat a lie often enough, it becomes a truth. And then at the same time, you censor the alternatives. I've got cousins in the US and cousins in the UK and cousins in Pakistan, and with some of them we have had some rather robust conversations. And they're telling me, look, as soon as Trump is inaugurated, as soon as he comes to power, there's going to be war everywhere. It's going to be, no, wait a minute, the guy's anti-war. Yes, he's pro-Zionist, but he's anti-war. He'll do Zionism through peaceful means if he's going to do it, right? But he's anti-war. So now he's pulling troops out of Europe. They're pulling their equipment out of Ukraine as well. He's pulling the CIA out of Ukraine. Right? This is all bloody good news. And then what Doge are doing, exposing, oh my God, $500 million to media outlets all over the world. The BBC, Der Spiegel, New York Times.
There was 500 million or some ridiculous figure just paid to like TikTokers, just to spread their propaganda on TikTok. It's like something ridiculous, the amount of money.
They never came to me to sub me for my videos.
I would have done it as well. Had they offered me 50 grand, I'd have done it.
50 grand, you're cheap, Gordon. 50 grand and Gordon will sell it. Gordon's political principles for sale for 50 grand.
I am not cheap. Oh, well, there's a difference.
And then, what was it? They gave $15 million, USAID gave $15 million to the Pakistan Election Commission to rig the most recent election. Over $300 million given for corruption in Pakistan that we know about. And then who knows how much they've given in other countries and for what purposes, because it's so black. Something over $4 trillion that's been given away, I can't remember which department, for which there's no reference number. It's just
no, they're literally they're not even like a reference as to, not even a receipt, basically, to say, yes, I gave this person $500 million or whatever it was. Not even a receipt. I mean, it's no wonder that the US government has never, the US Department of Defense basically has never passed an audit.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a big audit that they failed on September the 10th, 2001. I remember Donald Rumsfeld on stage saying, yeah, we've failed the audit. We can't find this $2 trillion. We've looked down the back of the sofa. We've checked the back of the shed. We've moved the bikes and everything. We can't find it anywhere. $2 trillion. And then before you knew it, we know what happened the next day, don't we?
Well, I remember at the time when this plane hit the Pentagon building, but there was no wreckage of a plane.
I remember seeing I think, was it CBS? I think it was CBS or something like that. And I remember there's a similar one, and you and I have talked about January the 6th as well, endlessly, and it's a point I don't think I've ever made to you, but I'll bring it up in a second. But there was a news report, I think it was CBS or something like that, and he was live, he was outside the Pentagon, and he was saying, like, there's a big hole, yeah, and we can see the smoke, but I can't see any fuselage, I can't see a tail, can't see an engine, nothing. And that was never aired again, that report. And similarly, January the 6th, do you remember Ashley Babbitt?
Mm-hmm.
He was shot and killed, Capitol. You know, they, like a SEAL team, I remember I think it was a CBS report, one of those American channels, and he was talking about how, you know, it was obviously as it was happening an hour or two afterwards, and he was talking about how a SEAL team descended down on ropes into the Capitol and took her body away. So, wait a minute. So you've got a rescue team that you can go right through the crowd and everything, all to pick up a body and then get it out by a helicopter. But you can't stop the riot from happening in the first place.
Yeah, protesters. And then have you seen the videos of the protesters, these dangerous rioters walking through the Capitol building and respecting the guide ropes.
And then you've got the guys in black with the black balaclava walking around with hammers breaking the glass and what have you, and obviously stoking everything up.
Yeah.
I've known people who were on the ground during that, and they say it's totally different to the way it's been portrayed around the world. But anyway, it's just, you know, it's one of those, propaganda is often not what they're saying, but what they don't say.
Yeah. And then I want to go back to 9/11 because I remember the day after it happened, they miraculously found the passports. Everything was incinerated and turned to dust, but except for the passports. I don't know what material those passports were made out of.
You know, I find it hilarious. I get called are you a conspiracy theorist? I say, yeah, it's a total conspiracy theory to poke holes in the official narrative of 9/11. I mean, think about it. It's obvious that the official narrative of 9/11 is true, isn't it? Because the CIA were tracking these terrorists all around the world through several countries across the Middle East and Europe for years, right until the point that they entered the United States and they stopped tracking them and didn't tell anybody, whilst they trained to fly a plane but didn't train to fly to land. And then these planes, one of them doing an absolute wonderful maneuver to actually hit the second tower, flown by really amateur pilots, had all these hours in the air, no problem whatsoever. And what did the Air Force of the United States do? Oh, they were scrambled out into the Atlantic.
Jeez. I think.
Did you know what the CIA did as well? You know, Washington, that sort of thing. They all left. They all went. Read Snowden's book. When 9/11 happened, Snowden was at Quantico, is it? Something like that, one of these military training places in Washington. And they evacuated the CIA and FBI buildings. They evacuated them because they were like, oh, it's a terrorist attack. If there's a terrorist attack on your country, do you want the people who are meant to sort it out to all fuck off home? because that's what happened. Snowden said, with Snowden's book, he's like, I couldn't believe it. Here we were being evacuated off the base. And I was like, wait a minute, if there's some sort of attack, then shouldn't we be here doing our job? It's all these little things, all these pieces of the puzzle. You don't find out until decades later. The official narrative of 9/11 is they knew who the terrorists were. They were tracking them for years, right up until the point that they entered the United States. They knew they'd come into the United States, these terrorists, and then they stopped tracking them and didn't tell the FBI or anybody that they were here and left them here for 2 years or whatever it was for them to fly the planes and then to learn to fly the planes, not to land there.
They were good pilots because not only did they knock down both Twin Towers by hitting them,
I know
they knocked down Building 7 without hitting it.
It's like a 7-11 split in bowling, isn't it?
It's just amazing. The only building in the world, the steel structure building in the world, to just collapse in on itself all of a sudden. Must have been like sympathy. It was so upset with what happened to the Twin Towers, and they lost all those records, all those treasury records in that building.
It just so happens to be that one building that fell just happens to be the place that had the records of the 2 trillion. Probably. I don't know whether that's true, but I've got a feeling they're connected somewhere, somehow.
Yeah. But then, Gordon, back to what's happening in the US, right, with all the stuff they're exposing, because one of the things that Trump
is... It's all good, isn't it, mate?
It is really, really good.
I'm not getting excited. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, and the fool man can't get fooled again. I was never on board with Trump the first time, and I know a lot of people who ended up very disappointed with him.
This
but
is so different.
It started off much better this time.
So different. No messing about. And I think they've said I saw something today on X. He's denying federal funding to Maine until Maine stops men competing in women's sports.
So this is common sense. This is
it's common sense.
I'm pro-trans. I believe that people should be able to live their lives however they want to live their lives. Just don't expect just don't police my speech, even when you're not in the room. Do you know what I mean? Don't dictate to me what I call you when you're not there, because otherwise I'm going to be calling you some really horrible names when you're not there, But other than that, just live and let live. I'm totally fine with it all. But when it comes to women's sports, men have an edge, and people who have testosterone in the body, high levels of testosterone, have an edge. And go back to propaganda, and it's often what is not said that really is the biggest piece of propaganda. Do you remember Caster Semenya? No. She's an 800 meter runner. She's basically got a 1 in a billion sort of quirk of genetics, meaning that she's female, but she's got a massively elevated testosterone levels. And she was running rings round, almost lapping people over to 800 meters against other women. So they measured her testosterone, and it was off the scale, so they banned her. And it basically turns out that she's got both female and male sort of X, Y, and X. I don't know the thing, but the BBC were stringing it for years. They were talking about it, and for years they were presenting it as if to say, "Oh, it's well, should you let it? Should you or shouldn't you? It's a really difficult decision." They left out the fact that she had fathered 2 children. Just left that out of the conversation. The BBC fathered 2 children. So, it was done via, I think, test tubes and what have you.
Yeah.
But still, that's a body that produces sperm.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
They left that out of the conversation. Didn't think to present that information to the public as they're, weighing this up. Oh, it's terrible for this person who's just, she's genetically a freak of genetics, basically. And there was loads of conversation because I watched the athletics regular, and the BBC athletics coverage is the best in the world, bar none. There's no adverts. But yeah, for years they were making this out as if it was a really difficult decision as to whether we should allow this woman to run in the 800 meters against the woman or not. Right. She's fathered 2 children. How can you?
Well, there's so much omission, right? There's so much omission. There was an article The Guardian did about a week or so ago about Trump's executive orders. And they listed all these executive orders, that men are men and women are women. There's only 2 sexes, 2 genders, and this other executive order and this other executive order. They missed out 2 executive orders. Really important ones.
Which ones?
Strengthened the First Amendment and he strengthened the Second Amendment. Look, because without those, that preserves the idea of Orange Hitler. He's such a fascist. He's such a fascist. He's strengthened freedom of speech and he's strengthened the right to bear arms, the constitutional rights that Americans have. As fascism goes, he's pretty poor. And then the other thing I wanted to say, Gordon, right, and you can come back to the first point, right, is I think people underestimate him to their peril.
Well, they do laugh at him a lot. They do tend to think that he's almost a clown.
But he's really smart.
I think he's really God, he's funny. Oh my God, he's funny.
He is funny.
He is funny. I don't want to like him. I don't want to find him funny, you know. But I do. I find him hilarious.
You can be neutral about him and appreciate what he does well.
There were certain stances that he has that just are abhorrent to me. But I mean, with regards to the choices, come on. I mean, and look at what he's done in the last. He's answered more questions in probably the last week than the Biden administration answered in 4 years.
Yeah, he'll take questions from anyone.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of people were obviously. I mean, I was absolutely over. I was really angry when he come out and said basically he's going to own Gaza and what have you. And so I thought, hold on, this is a good thing. This is what the Americans and Israel have wanted all along. Isn't it great that they've said that out loud now? And it's like nobody can hide behind this two-state solution or play both sides or anything like that. It's out there, and that's great. But also, there's a ceasefire.
Yeah. He said
there.
Before he was inaugurated, and after winning the election, he told Netanyahu, it has to stop by January 20th. It has to stop. And he stopped it. He absolutely stopped it. Did we talk about what happened with Witkoff? Was that with you?
With who?
Stephen Witkoff, his Middle East envoy.
No, I don't know.
I'll tell you the story, right? So, a week before the inauguration, or a few days before or something, right? Witkoff, his Middle East envoy, flies to Doha, has a meeting with some Arab nations. From Doha, he calls Netanyahu and he says, I'm coming. Oh, this is the weekend before. He says, I'm coming.
Oh, yes, it was me. Yes, you told me.
Yeah. It was like, bloody hell. Absolute bloody hell. He stopped it. Now, and then I've been trying to work out what is his play with Israel, right? What is his play with Israel? And I've got a sort of idea, because he is clearly anti-war. But then he's allowing Netanyahu for Israel to do what they're doing in the West Bank by displacing people. He did stop the slaughter in Gaza. But then he released the Moab bombs that Israel had ordered, that Biden had put a halt to, and Trump has let them through. Except, I heard the other day, I don't know where it was, what was the source of it, Israel can't use the Moab bombs because they don't have planes that can carry them. So they would need the US to do it.
Listen, at the end of the day, these bombs, it's a Moab. It's not very difficult. They've got an aircraft carrier, right? An aircraft, a big plane. They can literally just push it out the back of it with a parachute on it.
But I read it needed a C-30. I mean, Israel doesn't have them.
But I mean, they could literally find a big plane and just modify it and push it out the back if they wanted. So with regards to them dropping the one, I'm sure they'll be good. But I think the Moab has got nothing to do with Israel. I think Trump's sent those to Israel, not as a message to Israel, but as a message to Iran, as a bargaining chip against Iran, because he's going to end up pivoting and targeting Iran once he sorts out these two things. I've just got a feeling that that's the angle. Because, I mean, you can't drop a Moab. Well, I mean, I suppose you can drop a Moab on Gaza. There'll be nothing left of it whatsoever.
I think it's for Iran. But then just with Iran, he's reached out to Iran and says, look, I want to do a deal with you. He's doing deals. He's restoring normal diplomatic and I think trade relations with Russia, right? Which I think is a really good thing, certainly for the US and for Russia. Now, Ayatollah Khamenei has come out and said, look, we're not going to develop nuclear arms because it's un-Islamic. They have said that in the past. They could be lying. Could be a cover, right? Russia and Iran are in the process of working out a treaty, an actual treaty, not some sort of pact or verbal agreement. And part of that is a commitment that Iran's going to give to not develop nuclear weaponry. And it will also include that Russia will be able to monitor that they're honoring that treaty, and plus all the other aspects to it. So then Russia's saying to the US, look, we'll take care of that, because Russia doesn't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb either. So that's getting worked out.
He's also talking about de-escalation when it comes to nuclear, which is very, very positive.
Yes.
He's talking about de-escalation, especially when it comes to the nuclear, he said.
Yeah.
And that I'm fully supportive of.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, you can be upset about lots of things that Trump does and says, but I don't know how you could be upset about these things that he's doing right now. Or, you know, he's identifying massive amounts of government waste, of which there's literally just no. And you and I talked about this for years, haven't we, Rich? The amount of that they're just washing it out of Washington. Is that what they call it? Washington. They're washing a ton of money out of the place and then back into the hands of the transnational elite, as Julian Assange once said. You know, this is the gig. We've known this the whole time, but the amount, and it looks like how blasé and how just, you know, rampant this corruption was, and that it's not difficult to find. That's fantastic. The ending the Ukraine war. I mean, it's the same with Israel as well. We must remember that the United States, it's their wars. You know, all they have to do is stop supplying the weapons, and that's it. They're over. So the United States has this facility to end these wars. They are the only people in the UN when it comes to Israel who are vetoing any sort of action against them right now. They are on their own. You know, even their allies, the UK, have left them in the United Nations now. They are isolated with Israel. So, I mean, we'll see political pressure. Do you remember apartheid South Africa? The United States, I mean, they declared Nelson Mandela, I think, a terrorist until 2006.
Wow. Well, okay.
They're always the last one, and obviously the UK along with them. So we'll see. But I mean, I'm just happy that things do seem to be moving in a direction towards peace.
There is so much good that he's doing. There's so much bloody good. I've never been can't recall being so happy or thrilled with a leader of a country like what Trump is doing. Some of the stuff he's doing. But I want to go back to Israel, because there's something that I'm trying to work out. Right. So his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is an Orthodox Jew, very close to Netanyahu, and has talked about build, prime property where Gaza is, or whatever, that they could develop and make money from. Then he was given $100 million by Miriam Adelson. Except what I've heard, his biggest donors are the Saudis.
Yeah, and there's a reason that these peace talks in Ukraine were in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia are a big player in all of this, especially when it comes to Palestine and the Israel thing. Saudi Arabia will not bend from the two-state solution. They will not buckle from that. They would love to, don't get me wrong. Same with Iran, same with Jordan. The leaders I'm talking about here, not the people, because the people are the ones that they wouldn't be able to do it because the people would be in uproar in those countries. So they know that they have to support a two-state solution. They can't do what Trump is asking them, and this is why the international community was so absolutely taken aback with him saying, "Yeah, we're going to own it. We're going to clear those Palestinians out. They're going to move." And this is ethnic cleansing. It's a war crime. It's not allowed.
If it happened, it's ethnic cleansing. It's a war crime. But here's one of the things that I think Trump does. He says the most outrageous shit. The most outrageous stuff. People panic, get triggered, lose their shit, can't think, and they end up reacting to what he said. Meanwhile, he's doing something else. So he says to Canada and Mexico, 25% tariffs unless you secure your borders and stop the fentanyls and the illegals coming through. I'm not messing about. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Oh, we'll do that. right? And he didn't have to. They closed their borders with North Korea when he was going to go and see. I can't remember the stuff he was saying about Kim Jong Il, but it was the
Little
same
rocket
sort
man.
of thing, right? Little Rocket Man or whatever. Then he goes and meets him, has a civil conversation, I assume, right? And they're that far away from writing an agreement about nuclear de-escalation, except he's got Bolton and Pompeo as traitors whispering in either ear. So he says outrageous stuff. It's like I said, Gordon, I'm going to come and live in your flat, right? And what I'm going to do, you're just going to have one sofa to live on. The rest of it's going to be mine. And then I'll negotiate down. Okay, I'll have the sofa, Gordon. See, I got it, right? Gordon's great. We'll work something out, right? He does it like that. So then what's happened is he's thrown this, like Alex Craner said in a video of mine I did with Tom Luongo, we were discussing this. All three of us are upset about it, trying to work out what's he doing? He throws this grenade, a metaphorical grenade, into the whole issue. And then okay, fine, you guys aren't gonna deal with it? You guys aren't gonna, like a parent breaking up two squabbling kids. Fine, I'll take your toys. Right? And then the Israelis and the Arabs are losing their shit. What are we gonna do? Well, we better come up with something that doesn't involve displacing the Gazans. Let's see what we can do. So Egypt has said they're going to do that. Some Arab nations are getting together to discuss something and how they're going to finance it. But then what it does, it boxes in Netanyahu. And then perhaps, I'm speculating here, as a deal, okay, you get the West Bank.
What it comes down to with Israel and Palestine is the two-state solution, because all the nations, like we're saying there, Saudi Arabia, they will not buckle on it, right? And they've reiterated that several times over the last 15 months or 16 months or whatever it is, that unless there's a state of Palestine that's recognised at the end of this, then they will not support whatever Israel is doing. And the rest of the nations in the area are the same. And I mean, even the UK government, the UK government stance is we support a two-state solution, and all the Western countries support the two-state solution. The people who were stopping this, people who are stopping the two-state solution, are Israel.
Yeah.
It's always Israel that stop it, because a two-state solution means what? It means the end of Israel. It means the end of Israel. You can't have a colonial project like that where you haven't got the land for a start. To start off to start your greater Israel project. They're the ones who have been standing in the way of the two-state solution. This is the reason why Hamas was created by Israel in the first place, as an antidote to Yasser Arafat and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO. It was formed, Hamas was to stop, Arafat, because he was making headway towards what ultimately would have been a two-state solution.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Israel if that's the case, because people aren't going to want to go there if it's not the greater Israel, and people are going to leave, and that's bad for a colonial project.
People are leaving. Their tourism has collapsed. The rest of the world doesn't want to do business with them, right? Their economy is collapsing. There's loads of unemployment. They've got loads of, having a reserve army. It's a small population having a reserve army, many of whom don't want to fight and they're deserting, or they're traumatized by what they've done because really they're just civilians.
Did you hear what happened in Miami the other day?
Yeah.
IDF geezer shoots two people in the car because he thinks they're Palestinian. Just opens fire on them, shoots them. They arrest him, and they're like, well, why did you do it? And he's laughing. He's laughing, going, yeah, he is Palestinian. You know what I mean? He's laughing that he shot these two Palestinians. Turns out they weren't Palestinian at all. They were Israeli. They're that deluded now. They're going around in America trying to shoot Palestinians, and they're shooting their own people. This is the result of the bubble that they've been in. They're going to other countries around the world, and they're absolutely shocked. Hold on a minute, these other countries absolutely hate our guts now. What's up with that? I mean, I've spent time in Thailand. I think I've been there twice. Spent a lot of time in there since this has been happening, since October the 7th. And I've got to tell you, Thailand, they used to love Israelis. The Israel flags all over in all the bars. You know, all the flags in the bars that come down. You got Britain and Scotland and all that. Israelis and all over them when I went there 2 years ago. This time, there's a space. There's flag, space with a white and blue strip. They've literally ripped the flags down from the bars. And Thailand loved Israel, and I've seen them in the streets. Shalom, my friend from Israel, but now, and this is happening all around the world. And now, when they're coming, I mean, they're going to be going on leave now. As if there's a ceasefire, some of them are going home, and they're going to be going abroad and whatever. And this is going to happen more and more and more because now there are organisations around the world tracking these IDF soldiers. And if they find out one of them's gone abroad, they'll go on. If they posted anything on Facebook or anything like that that's documented one of their war crimes, Israel are having to parachute them out there and get the diplomats involved to get them out before they end up in prison for war crimes. Then not only are they not only is nobody going to want to go to Israel, they won't be able to go anywhere in the world. My missus said this 6 months ago. You know what a badass my missus is on the Palestine situation. She said it was about a year ago. She said they're going to have to lie to people about where they come from when they go anywhere. She said I could spot an Israeli accent a mile off. She said, but they said that before, but they're going to have to lie to people, and this is as a result of this awful genocide that they've done. And not just the last 15 months, but also because it's also blown the lead on the propaganda as well. All of a sudden, the propaganda leaders come off, and people have been realised, 1948 Nakba. BBC never told me about the Nakba. What else haven't they told me about? Oh, the 1967 borders. And all of a sudden, people started educating themselves. And this is why the sentiment against Israel around the world is so negative. They're never going to recover from it. Nobody's going to want to go there, and they're going to have to lie about where they come from. Will come from when they go somewhere else. Mark my words, it's already happening.
Absolutely. Israel has lost. No, but stay with me, right? Because I want to go, because I've still got some stuff that I'm working out with regards to Israel. So there's all this, like, which way is Trump going? He promised Muslim voters that he was going to stop the slaughter.
Yeah.
And actually, on all the stuff that he said he was going to do, he's doing it.
There's no argument there.
Yeah.
Really.
Now,
and I would do if I could.
He's pro-Zionist. Some of his senior figures: Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, Kash Patel, no doubt others.
Rubio,
of course, yeah.
Little Marco, remember that? Little Marco.
All pro-Zionist. On the other side, Pete, I forget the name of his. No, there's Pete Hegseth. He's pro-Zionist, I think, as well. But there's the Middle East. There's somebody else who's responsible for the Middle East, so like Middle East attaché, who said we want to get out. It hasn't served us all these wars we've been waging, right? So we're going to get out. We're not going to be playing the role that we played before. So that's on the other hand, right? Then Pam Bondi posted today, and Trump's been saying for a while, we're going to release the files, the Epstein files, the JFK files, the 9/11 files. And what are they going to show? That behind all of them, CIA, Mossad, and MI6.
Yeah.
MI6 own CIA and Mossad. MI6 trained both of them.
See, I'm of the opinion that Mossad reports to America, and we are owned by America in the UK.
Yeah,
I'm of the opinion that the Americans own the UK and Israel.
Okay, try on what I'm saying, right? Because I was of that opinion too, and I've learned a few things. So it's like, oh. So, then the other thing that Trump is doing, he's draining the gold, and he's attacking the UK. He's draining the gold out of the UK, and that is a big, big deal. One of the biggest money earners for the City of London is rehypothecation of gold. What that means is, Gordon, you've got, say, one of those cushions behind you, right? Let's say it's solid gold, right? And you this one, that one, right? I can tell. Oh, it's heavy in here, right? Gold's really heavy, right? It's solid gold. You sell me a certificate of ownership of that gold, right? So I can come to you and give you the certificate, give me that gold. That's rehypothecation. Infinite rehypothecation means you can make lots and lots of certificates for the same cushion of gold, and you can sell them to your neighbor, you can sell them to my brother, you can sell them to your friends for the same cushion. The amount of gold doesn't change, but each time you're generating revenue, and all you got to do is push a button.
This is why we went on to why the petrodollar came into existence, isn't it? Because of this very thing that America was
the
doing.
US was doing it, right? But
Over printing money based upon
which
gold that
wasn't
they
backed
didn't
by
have.
anything, right? Yeah. But in London, the city of London allows for the infinite rehypothecation of gold. And as long as nobody claims on it. But then a large player comes along and says, hey, listen, I want my gold. You got to deliver the gold. No, I don't want cash settlement. I want the gold. Give me the gold.
Ponzi scheme's over then, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, here's what's happening. It's taken 4 to 8 weeks to deliver the gold, because what they're having to do is buy the gold from the market to then deliver the gold.
Which is why it's hit an all-time high. This is why it's reached $3,000, whatever it is.
That's right. And also because of the uncertainty and everything, right? But it's draining out of London. That's why it's taking 4 to 8 weeks, because they got to scramble around to source the gold. And apart from black gold, which we're not digging up out of the ground anymore, right? All we have for generating revenue is the City of London. And how the City of London generates revenue is with the pound as the medium of exchange between different currencies. 30% of the world's traders uses the pound, right? Shipping insurance, well, that's died a death because of the sanctions against Russia and all the other oil tankers that are delivering Russian oil, and rehypothecating gold. He is out to break the City of London and the remnants of the British Empire. Now, here's a little bit more about that. Kissinger was a British agent. Kissinger appointed Klaus Schwab to head up the WEF. When the British left their colonies, they gave them nominal independence. So they said, okay, we're out, right? But in the background, they're still pulling strings. Was it the Crown owns 25% of Canada? Disneyland is on Crown property in Florida. Yeah. How much of Kenya and South Africa and India did they still hold on to in the shadows?
Who did the Crown buy it off, mate?
Well, they just stole it off the locals, isn't it? It's ours, they said, right?
Technically, it's not theirs. If I steal something,
yeah, absolutely,
and then 10 years later they find out that I stole it, I can't keep it.
Yeah. Now, what I've talked to you about fractals, right? Here's another pattern of human behavior. A woman's in a relationship with an abusive guy. He's beating up on her. She finally says to him, clear off. He goes. He leaves the house, but he doesn't stop being an abuser. And he starts exerting coercive control while he's away from the home. So that's my fractal for the behavior of the British. They didn't just suddenly stop being imperialist bastards.
No, it's different brains.
Yeah, we're just going to stay in control. And then if you look, during lockdown, you look at all these upper class Pakistanis and Indians in positions of power. Varadkar, Hamza Yusuf, Rishi Sunak, and maybe then one or two in Europe as well. All of a sudden, right? These Indians and Pakistanis, but highbrow, upper class, because they would have had connections with the British ruling elite.
Yeah.
Now, Israel is a British project. Rothschild pressured Balfour for the Balfour Declaration in 1917.
Pressured the UK government. Balfour was just the guy who wrote the letter to.
Just wrote it, right? Pressured. They said, look, let's set this up, right? Yeah. And then what happened was the British and the French destroyed the Ottoman Empire, and they split the spoils between them. But the British split it in a particular way. Have I told you this?
I know the story, but please carry on.
Okay, they split it in a particular way, like they always do when they divide up their colonies, that they leave a little bit as a festering sore, so they can shit stir later on. So Kurdistan is not one congruent state. No, it's in Iraq, it's in Syria, it's in Turkey, it's in Iran, because then they can shit stir. They left Northern Ireland, like Protestants and Catholics can't live together. Really? Kashmir as another bleeding sore. East and West Pakistan as another bleeding sore. And whenever it looks like India and Pakistan are going to get friendly, as happened during Imran Khan's tenure as Prime Minister, because the guy was reasonable, they shit stir and something happens. So the British are masters at shit stirring, so then they deposit this colonial outpost surrounded by we're surrounded by gas and oil, so they can shit stir, so that the locals, the Arabs and the Muslims, they never unite, because the British are masters at divide and rule. And then they use the Zionists to exert control over the US.
There was a bigger patch of land that the British owned in Africa that Israel was suggested that Israel could start in. It was bigger than the patch in the Middle East where it is now, but it was turned down because it was thought, on the English and the British and the American side, we could really do with an unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East. And that's you've heard them call it that. You've heard politicians call Israel an unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East, and that's exactly how they view it. They view it as a launching pad into Middle Eastern wars.
Now, there's a bit more to this. Britain is pissed off that they lost the American colonies. They're really, really pissed off. And then what they did is they instigated the French Revolution to get their own back on the French, who supported the Americans in their War of Independence. And that was the first color revolution. Now, the references, a lot of this is from Richard Poe's How the British Invented Communism and Blamed It on the Jews. I do recommend it. It's a great history book for people like me who don't like history. Really bite-sized nugget chapters that read really well and quickly, right? Not dense, like a big word. Yeah, big handwriting, big letters, right? Not like those thick historical tomes. So, and then Britain, whenever there's any sort of mischief, there you will find the British, the color revolutions. And then they use the CIA and Mossad as fronts. And they're the ones behind the curtains pulling the strings, because theirs is the world's oldest central bank, 1694.
I kind of look at it now. I look at it a little bit different than that. In that, I kind of look at the people who are pulling the strings now on a country. It's not a country doing this.
Yeah,
it's sort of a transnational elite group of people who are stateless. They're not really doing anything for the benefit of a country. They're doing it for the benefit of themselves and their pockets and their owners.
They're doing it for power and control.
Yeah, and this is why there's so much blackmail. This is why there's so much backstabbing and subterfuge and shenanigans going on behind the skiers scene with things like Maxwell and Epstein. And we must remember, Whitney Webb, who's probably done, I think, the best investigative work with regards to the Epstein and Maxwell thing. She's a wealth of information. She's of the opinion that Epstein and Maxwell were just one of thousands. And she's also of the opinion that they're really just middle management. The people listen, if you want to know why, to anybody watching, if you're confused still as to why nobody that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein trafficked children to were never named, let alone prosecuted, it's probably because they're the people who were in control of the government and prosecution and courts. That's the only explanation, right? This is pedophilia, and it's not being looked at. It's not even being investigated.
It is going to come out, Gordon. I promise you, it's going to come out.
I hope it does, because I'm going to look like frigging Nostradamus. I really am, because I've been screaming about this for 6 years now.
Yeah, it is going to come out. And I interviewed a guy, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Murray, who was in the US military cyber intelligence. And I'm about to record with him again, I think next week. And he and I, we talked about it. We did a short video just about paedophilia and child trafficking, because it's so bloody unpleasant. It's so unpleasant. And this is good news. This is good news. You and I, we both like this. So under Biden, 325,000 unaccompanied children
were found in his basement.
No, they were lost. They were lost. 325. The government lost.
Did they look in Biden's basement? Hashtag just say it.
Oh my God. No, what they did in the first week,
that's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
In the first week, of Trump's administration, they found 75,000 of them.
Yeah, all of a sudden found them.
Yeah, well, because I think they're serious. And what Steve Murray was talking about, he was saying, look, these networks are all over the place, all over the world. They use them to control people. It goes back to at least as far back as Hoover, who used compromat to empower himself. Maybe it's even older than that, right? And Trump is out to break it. Trump is out to break it.
Well, I hope he does, mate. I do. I hope he does. The Ukraine thing's great. The stopping the war in Ukraine. That it looks like that's over. It looks like there's going to be a ceasefire, then a peace agreement, then some sort of reparations. I've been saying for a while that Nord Stream is going to be top of the list for reparations, but I'm not so sure about that anymore because I'm wondering whether Trump's just going to offer the dropping of all the sanctions. Because I mean that would be more profitable than
certainly for the US.
Reparations for Nord Stream, right?
Yeah, Russia doesn't need the sanctions. Russia's doing fine with the
Yeah,
sanctions.
but I mean, it's just being able to deal with
it would benefit the US
to start off with, to trade with America again. I mean, I know, they never stopped trading in the plutonium, which I think was kind of a telltale thing.
Yeah, just on the plutonium, I don't know if you know this, right?
The uranium and the plutonium, they carried on buying that from Russia. Yeah. Nothing else.
And Russia kept supplying gas to Ukraine.
Right. So I mean, there's always that. There's always some people. I just hope it looks great for Ukraine. I'm not going to say what he's doing in Israel is good. It's not. Some of the stuff he said is absolutely abhorrent. But I will say this: when he's saying it, as he's saying what he's saying with regards to we're going to own Gaza, just take a look at Netanyahu's face, who's sitting next to him. He's not happy. You might want to clip it in here, mate, because he's not happy about what Trump is saying. He ends up saying, "Oh, he's the best friend Israel is going to have," but you can see he's seething underneath because Trump is saying the quiet part out loud. You're not meant to actually say this stuff out loud. It's meant to just be behind closed doors. Otherwise, the mask is off. So yeah, that's it's not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad, and the ceasefire hopefully will hold. And it does seem like, I mean, when it looked like the ceasefire was going to collapse last week because Israel have just been violating it left, right, and centre, killing people in the West Bank, still killing people in Gaza, not letting 30% of the aid trucks that they said to do. Trump didn't say, "Oh, the war's going to restart." I don't think he was saying words like, "There'll be hell to pay." You could aim that at the Israelis just as much as the Palestinians, So. It's not great what's going on there, but it's not bad. But with regards to the government waste and the blowing the lid off USAID, blowing the lid off just how much USAID. I mean, at Wuhan University was being funded, I think, in 7 different ways just through USAID because they're funding it through the National Institute of Health, as you know, but also they were funding it through like 5 or 6 universities as well and the Pentagon. So 7 different ways Wuhan University was getting money from USAID. USAID. How Orwellian is that?
Yes. Okay. My last thing about Israel, and then I want to come on to the US, to the Wuhan and that related business, right? My last thing about Israel. Again, sticking with fractals, or going back to fractals, right? One of the things that I have done as a social worker, when I've worked in particularly abusive households, it might look like to others looking in, and certainly to the parents, that I'm working with the parents, and often I am, right, working with them to see about, that they can correct how they've been parenting and everything and see if they can get the treatment and the support that they need. And I'm doing that. So it looks like I'm supporting them, and I am supporting them. But on the other hand, I'm amassing evidence that I need to demonstrate to court that I need to remove this child because this child's not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a double hander. And parents don't know. I've done this once with fabricated induced illness. The mum thought I was helping her with her housing. But what I was actually doing was amassing evidence for how much she was abusing her children. And then go to court to remove the daughters and hopefully place them with somebody else in her family, right? So then I wonder, and I'm not saying he is, but there's so much here mixed up. And I do think that he is really, really fervently anti-war. The way that he talks, I don't know if I saw a clip on X the other day. He was saying about, like, we've got to stop killing people. These are
Yeah.
Ukrainians and Russians. I don't care. We just stop killing people. We have to stop that. And I don't think he's of a mind, oh, it's all right to kill Palestinians. If
No,
the cause of Zionism. No, he's not that. He's just doesn't want to kill people. And he's got a team around him now. Because that's the other thing. Rubio! Oh my God, what's happened to Rubio? Arch neocon, he's just flipped. It's like
my favourite clip of Rubio was about, I think, it's about 2 months ago. It was just before Trump was inaugurated. And he's on MSNBC or one of these talking head channels, and they're talking to him about the de-dollarization of the world. And he literally just stands there and says, "Listen, in 5 years' time, if people keep de-dollarizing the way they are, we won't be able to sanction anybody. We won't. It won't make any difference because people aren't using our money." And you can see, as he's saying it, the colour is draining from his face. It's one of my favourite clips. So whether they've realised this, and whether they've realised that, I think maybe they've realised that an influx, an inflection point, or whatever it's called, has been reached here. Maybe the snowball has gone over the top of the cliff, and now the US is just gathering speed, and they've got to do some damage control or what. Maybe that means shrinking. Bringing troops out of NATO, shrinking their bases abroad, that sort of thing, to come at home and be more insular. Remember, after World War II, the United States had a 20, 30-year period of what they called isolation.
They supported, they got involved in the Korean War in the 50s, 1952.
Yeah, so I was just about to say isolation, not in the southern hemisphere. And my friend Fiona Ryan says she doesn't think that the World War II ended in 1940 or whatever it was, or 43, 44. Is it 44 or 45? I can't remember. She doesn't think it ended then. It just ended in Europe because it actually went Korea, Vietnam, Guatemala.
Plus all the stuff the US was doing with NED and USAID in South America, training killer squads for hunters.
So maybe they've realised that the gig is up now. Maybe they've realised that the genie's out the bottle. Maybe they've realised that public opinion in the world is now too anti-American, and they've got to do something about it, or what. But certainly something is happening, because there's. I mean, was it Stalin who said that in politics, years will go by, decades will go by. Years will go by when nothing happened, and then decades happen in weeks. Yeah. I think we could be at that point right now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see.
Well, the other thing to Trump's credit is he's not a politician. He's not from that milieu. He's a businessman. He wants to trade and do business and deal, and he's very, very good at dealing. He's really,
and this is what I think the Moab thing is, and this is just my opinion on it. I've got nothing to back this up at all. It's just my opinion. You told me, you put me onto this angle of thinking when you were talking about when he went to speak to Iran last time. Who did he take with him? Bomb Iran, Bolton. Because he starts off there. Then, if you start off 200 meters down there, you might reach an agreement at the 80-meter mark. But if you start from the start line, you might end up minus 50. And that's the way he thinks, and it's also the way the Israelis think as well.
But which is also his outrageous statement. So he doesn't have Bolton with him this time. He just has his bombacity. We're going to take everything. We're going to take Greenland. We're going to take Canada.
Let me just say as well, Rich. Remember, that statement was because he was asked an unsolicited, unchecked question by a member of the press. That we'd never even got that with Biden.
Probably explains why some of his team were walking it back, because it is a violation of international law. It's genocide. Yeah, okay, I didn't know that. Thank you for that. And then JD Vance.
I don't know much about this guy. I don't know much
about
him.
Oh my God.
Things about him, but I know his history pre-Trump, and I know he's very anti-Iran, and up until recently has been very anti-Russia as well.
But he's been anti the war. I think he's been anti the Ukraine war for a while. And he's Christian. He's married to an Indian. He's apparently the story is he was brought up in a broken home and everything. Went to serve in the army at some point, and then very successful business person. He's been sponsored by Peter Thiel from Palantir or whatever, or mentored in some way. So who knows, right? But he gave a speech at the Munich Security Conference, that really, really upset the Europeans.
How
How dare you attack our democratic values? Yeah.
They were looking at each other saying, what the shit? What did they do?
Like, you can't go arresting people for memes. And then also he said, I don't know whether this is Germany, because I interviewed an MP from IFD last night with Tom Luongo, and the IFD MP, really great guy. He's a professor of politics,
Far right, isn't it?
committed to anti.
That far right party.
That's right, far right, like you and me, Gordon, right?
Yeah.
Committed to committedly peace activists, right? Peace activists joined the IFD because he said they're for peace. I believe in diplomacy over bombs. So we should be talking to the Russians and settling this through diplomacy. So he joined the IFD. He's an MP. He's likely to get re-elected again, he said. But he said that Vance has told either the Germans or the Europeans, if you ban X, then we're really going to have to consider whether to remain part of NATO.
I think NATO's done.
Well, they might. I mean, I think that's on the cards anyway. That Trump's going to exit the US from NATO because it doesn't serve them. They don't need it. The Europeans and the British need it.
The Europeans need that big bully boy backing them.
Yeah, but Trump's not interested in playing that. So they're not going to allow it. And he was just all about, like, look, you can have free speech. It's the cornerstone of democracy. And it's so pissed off the European establishment. They got so pissed off about it. And then fractals. I see it again in fractals. So as a social worker, I will challenge a parent about what they're doing, A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? And I'll give specifics. And what do? They just rude to me. And they just get personal, but they don't address the specifics of what I've said. And that's what how the European elites responded. They didn't address the specifics of what he said. How dare you say we do that? Wah, 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 wah.
My missus said to me the other day, something come on the news about Germany, and she went, oh, there's elections on Sunday in Germany. I said, yeah, elections on Sunday in Germany. She says, who do you think's going to win? I said, I think the AfD are going to be the ruling party, whether they're outright or win coalition, but I think they're going to do really well. She says, are they right wing? She says, what? She says, are they far right? I said, well, it depends on what you call far right, darling. I said they basically want the war in Ukraine to end and for peace in Europe. And I said they want to stop the unabetted, unaided immigration because there's millions of immigrants now in Germany and whatever. They want to stop the authoritarian overreach that's come in Germany of COVID and that sort of thing. And she just looked at me and went, fascists.
That's right. These fascists.
That's right wing now, because that's the far right according to the media, and that's basically the AfD platform, right?
Well, Gordon, have you noticed there's no conservatives anymore?
No,
you're either establishment or you're far right.
You're either a Biden-loving communist or you're a Trump fascist. There's nobody in between.
Well, no. You're either one of the good people like Starmer and Badenoch, or you're far right. That's really it. Where are the conservatives? And the impression I got from IFD is like they're a traditional conservative party. They believe they want to promote business, small government, freedom of speech. So far right ideas.
Been a bit quiet on Ukraine, isn't he?
Sorry?
Well, Farage has been a bit quiet on Ukraine.
No, he's okay. He
finally came out yesterday and was like, "Oh, it's a very bad idea. We've got to stop in Ukraine." He said. Good job, guys. Well done. Good job. You're really getting that support, aren't you?
Yeah. No. He's supporting Ukraine, right? But here's something else to watch out for. He may also be working for the City of London.
He's
a commodities trader.
Listen, I'm not going to tell people who to vote for, right?
I am. Workers' Party or the Heritage Party.
But don't vote for a millionaire from the City of London. You know, you might as well vote Starmer. Just face it.
No. Stop it.
You know,
it's
essentially the same background, though. It's like, you know, he's a millionaire who is in a political party run by billionaires, and I don't see how these billionaires have got the best interests of the British people and the workers in this country at heart, because billionaires get where they are by having the most capital to then reinvest in their company to become billionaires. And the way they get the most capital is by cutting corners, by shaving, pennies off
Making
wages,
deals with banks.
by making, making side deals. It's, the most. We have a system that doesn't punish corruption. It actually punishes people who are honest. For instance, if you're honest on your tax return, you'll probably spend 30-40%. But if you do all sorts of shenanigans that are legal, technically they're legal, you'll get away with paying pretty much nothing. So we've got a system here that actually benefits those who are liars and who want to cheat and want to steal and want to lie and get ahead. That's the system that we've got. So it's only natural then to understand that the people who get to the very top in that system, the billionaires, are the worst and the most ruthless bastards that you can possibly imagine. Just look at Elon Musk. I can't imagine what it would be like to work for him. I can imagine that if you didn't know him well, you're not working directly for him, that your job's on the line at any time. I'm not saying that what he did at Twitter was a bad thing. I don't. I actually think it's great. I think it's lovely. Walks in within 5 minutes. If he doesn't understand what you do, that's it. You're on your bike, pal. I want somebody to go down to Westminster and Downing Street and do that very thing in every building around there. If you walk in, observe them for 5 minutes. If you can't figure out what they do, get on your bike, pal. Get out. There you go. I've just cut 100 grand from the government purse. This is what we need.
Yeah.
But yeah, billionaires are bad people. They're not Batman.
Okay. Now, that reminds me, Galloway said, and I think many people all over Europe are saying, we need our own Doge in our countries. And then Liz Truss, I haven't listened to her speech, but she gave a speech where she was saying that who actually runs the show is the deep state in the UK. Now the deep state is going to be embedded historically and find its roots in those who had lots and lots of money back in the day. Perhaps back in the day in 1694 when the City of London was established. The Bank of England, was established. Now, I said to you about Wuhan stuff. So there's talk that they're going to ban mRNA injections in the US. Yes, if it happens.
Ban them as a vaccine.
As a modality, as a treatment, you're not going to have mRNA injections. Okay. That's my understanding. It's speculation right now, but often what governments do and what parties do, and ruling governments do, is they'll throw out an idea. They prime the public. I saw that a lot during lockdown. Oh, we don't have, and sometimes no, we're not going to do this. Oh, we might have to do this. Oh, we're not going to do this. Oh, we might have to do this. So it enters the discourse and it widens the Overton window. So now there's speculation that they might ban the mRNA injections. If they do that, that's going to have ripples all across the world. But at the same time, yesterday Trump was at some function and he acknowledged and thanked the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla. Boy, did Trump get booed by the audience. He really, really got booed. But then it might be he keeps his enemies close. The guy's he's very, very smart. And I think people underestimate him to their own peril. And they don't get to see how well he's playing the game, given what he's accomplished to come back into power after all the.
I covered his first presidency. It was ruined. They ruined it.
Absolutely ruined it. But this time, he survived Russiagate.
Come back.
Everything in between, all the lawfare, the assassination. That's right. And now he's back, and he's really well prepared because he's got warriors like Gabbard and Patel and RFK and Rubio and J.D. Vance who don't back down. No, these are our principles. We're not backing down.
I can see it for what it is, mate. I can see it for what it is, and I wish people would take their blinkers off and open their eyes a little bit and just look at things objectively a little bit more.
Well, I don't even know objectively, Gordon, because it's just.
Orange man bad, though, isn't it?
Sorry?
Orange man bad.
I don't think I look at things objectively. I have a particular bias, right, shaped by my politics and my religion, the fact that I'm a man and brought up in Britain, right? But what people don't do is consider the other sides of the argument. And I know for me as a social worker, I have to. Like, I'm working with this guy, this father, and there's an allegation that he sexually abused his daughter. I got to look for evidence that he has done, but I also got to look for evidence that he hasn't done. Whenever I come across a family, I'm looking for evidence for the good and evidence for the bad, and then I weigh it up. People don't do that generally. They're like, oh well, the Guardian tells me this, and that's it, settled. No exploring the counter arguments or considering them. So if they get rid of the mRNA injections, great. And then RFK is going to make America healthy again. That's very, very good. And then Kash Patel cleaning up the FBI, cleaning the house.
Like I say, mate, it's all heading in the right direction.
I'm interested.
There's still questions over Israel, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've got no complaints with regards to anything else.
Well, here's something else about Israel, right? So he's doing all this stuff that you and I think is beneficial, agree is beneficial, right? And then there's Israel.
It's not like it's an easily sought out problem, right? No.
And I just wonder, it just wouldn't, given there's just something off the way that, like, people already immediately understand it, people's immediate reaction, including my own immediate reaction, it just doesn't fit the rest here.
Maybe it's time to cut it loose, Donald.
And then, what I'm curious about.
Maybe it's time to say thank you very much for that support during my 2 election campaigns, but I can't be president again, so I don't need any more money.
I don't need the support from the Zionists.
But thank you very much. We will make America great again. You are wonderful. Good luck. Good luck.
Bring peace.
Good luck in South America or whatever it is that you end up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the last shoe to drop. But listen, I'm going to hold my breath and wait with a bated breath to see what happens over there. With regards to everything else, listen, you only need to look how it's affected people in the mainstream in this country to see them flipping out over everything he's doing right now, to see that it must be good. It must be a good thing for you as well if people in the media here are saying it's bad, because they just get everything wrong. Remember, these people right now in the media are still saying that this was Russia's war of aggression without any context with regards to the Minsk agreements, without any context with regards to the Maidan coup, without any context with regards to the billions that they've flooded into the airwaves, or USAID, or Hunter Biden. And
something we haven't mentioned, how Ukraine was a hub of bioweapons development, child trafficking and organ trafficking.
When the Ukraine war broke out, I know for a fact that people had found out that the child trafficking people were calling it harvest time.
Oh.
That's what happens when war breaks out.
Yeah.
So
they were harvesting children before that, according to, and I believe the Russians have presented that evidence to the United Nations.
Of course, but obviously when war breaks out, there's a lot of kids there they're up for grabs, and nobody's going to miss them it's going to be harder to locate them during wartime. So that's why it's called that. Yeah. And that industry is bigger than the music industry now. It's getting up there towards Hollywood.
Well,
child trafficking.
P. Diddy tapes, and then the material on Tom Hanks.
There's all sorts of.
Yep, that's going to come out.
I don't know what's. They're all question marks over them now. I've said it so often, I feel like I'm a broken record, but I look at people on my TV screens now in this country, and there's an immediate question mark if you're on the TV screen. If you're a celebrity in this country, I question whether you've done something that's on a tape somewhere. Because none of them step out of line when it comes to Israel. None of them said ding out of line. They're all in lockstep. They're all in lockstep with the UK foreign policy on every single issue. And that's not just the newsreaders. That's freaking, Phil and Holly.
And actors.
Nobody steps out of line. And if they do, they're gone pretty quickly. As we've seen with the likes of Frankie Boyle, with the likes of Max Kaiser. Max Kaiser has openly said, I work for the BBC and they've got one standing order there. Don't say anything negative about Israel, ever. That's their one standing order. So you've got to question, why? Have they got goods on everybody? Are they literally blackmailing everybody, including our politicians and our actors and our famous people and our royal family? Because you know that you've got pictures of Epstein and Maxwell at the Queen's private residence, her private home, not a castle, no, Sandringham, her private residence. And so, you know, these are people who traffic children for a living, and they're with all the elite in this country, and these are just two people. Like I said, Whitney Webb said that they were just middle management and they're one of thousands. So this is obviously rampant, and I've said before, there's a rot, I believe, that runs through the establishment in the UK, and it's been there a very long time, and it needs to be ripped out, root and stem. And George Galloway, I watched the other night, first time in a while actually. He was excellent as always. Where that guy gets his energy from, I just don't know. If you know anything about George Galloway, and I do, because I move in circles of people that I don't know him personally. I've met him a couple of times, but he never stops. The guy just never stops. 4 o'clock in the morning, he'll be, you know, wanting answers on something. He just never stops. But he said that he wants the British Doge. He wants the British. You know, I say to that, great. Can we have a British, like, you know, rooting out of the paedophiles as well, please, and rooting out of the corruption with regards to not just, you know, the elite, but right to the very top. I mean, the royal family, because they stole all that shit. They just stole it. And the people who stole it weren't from this country. I don't know whether you realise that. They were all German and French and bloody Greek and what have you, if you go back in history. Yep. So why is it that these people have got all this power and all this money? Why? Because they fucking took it. They took it. They had guns and knives and whatever, and they took it from people and have been lording it over us ever since, and paying people to protect them from us. And I've had enough of it. I've had enough of the sycophanty suck-upness of all the people in the elite, and that's again another thing that you never see famous people say. You'll never see famous people that are always pro-Israel, always pro-royal, always pro-American. Won't get them to say bad things about any of those things, and if ever they do, they're off the TV screens very, very quickly. Like I say, just make me question whether anybody in the public eye in this country, puts a question mark above their heads, every single one of them, because I can't see how they let people on the screens if they don't have the goods on them. I've been doing this for a while, mate, and I'm telling you, if you look through the lens, right, you know Occam's razor? Occam's razor is the principle in medicine, principle in many things, that if you don't know the answer to something, then the most obvious answer that takes the least amount of jump to conclusions to get there is most likely to the right one. Well, what would explain the way the UK has been just going along with a genocide with Israel, no matter what? Although 80% of the country is against it, what would explain the media running cover for it non-stop? If they've got the goods on the royal family, right?
Yeah.
If they've got the real tapes. Because those tapes are out there. Epstein and Maxwell taped everything. The FBI had over 2,000 videos of CDs of videos just from one of his properties. He had 5, and that's not including his island. I think that was the one in Texas. That's just one. Over 2,000 videos of people and they haven't prosecuted. They haven't even looked at a single one, I bet you. Why is that? Well, if you jump to the conclusion, Israel's blackmailing us. Israel's got the goods on us and he's blackmailing us with. It all makes sense.
It does. And it still fits what I would add to it. Israel's controlling the US in service of the UK. It's a colonial outpost of the UK. And if you look in history and the way that it was set up, that becomes clear. Gordon, we should finish up. I recommend you go check out Richard Poe's How the British Invented Communism and Blamed.
I'll have a look at that for sure.
Yeah.
I'll have a look into it.
Absolutely great talking to you. Thank you. I know you and I, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but it's 9:30. I got more to go, right? We will do this again in a few weeks' time, and this will go out on my channel and your channel, and all the relevant links will be somewhere in the ether. Please share them.
Fine. Yes, I should put it out on Rumble tomorrow.
All right. Take care, Gordon. All the best, mate. Bye-bye.
Sorry.